Hi there. uh, I have been talking a lot about gear, in particular, of course, older cameras, for quite some time now. And I think it's gotten to be maybe a little out of hand. The fact is, folks, that older cameras can do the job. The camera I was using for quite some time recently for street photography and so on was, of course, this little old Olympus EP3. It has now it's now in what I will prefer to call semi-retirement. Much like myself, it has been retired and called back into service, and retired again and called back into service again. But I think it's time to move on. I do have better cameras. In fact, the camera that I probably will be using quite a bit now will be my Sony. I have a Sony Alpha 6300, uh, and I've collected a nice set of primes for it because I see it as being my camera that I will use for just for me. I have my Olympus gear. I love my Olympus gear. There's no issues there. I'm not going to be complaining about Olympus. I am not going to be complaining about Micro Four Thirds. I'm not going to be singing its praises. I am merely going to point out the fact that I really like it. Handling is fantastic. The cameras are quite rugged. Good stuff. I still have, in real rotation, cameras that will actually get used. Two OMD EM1s, the original models. And this is right now being shot on an OMD EM5 Mark II. I've decided that this is going to be my talking head camera because it can do the what Hugh Brownstone calls the whack-a-mole, where it will focus on things that are in front of it and it will go back to my face when it's finished. So it does what I need for this. It also has, of course, a rotating screen, which means that I can actually see myself without having to use the little mirror device that I was using with the Sony. So getting back to the Sony. In this picture, you can see my prime setup. You see that there is a 13mm f1.4 Viltrox, a 23mm f1.4 Viltrox, a 30mm f1.4 Sigma, and a 50mm f1.8 Sony lens. Now, I've had a number of lenses with this kit. When I purchased the camera, it came with the very nice video lens, the 18-105, which I gave to my son because I'm not shooting that kind of video. I'm shooting this kind of video. This kind of video merely needs a lens. I don't need the image stabilized power zoom, internal focusing, internal zooming lens that's huge. So instead, I passed that on. In fact, I sold the 55-210, which was, I think, a mistake to purchase in the first place for me. Since I already had long lenses for my Olympus gear, I didn't need another long lens. So I sold it, and I used the proceeds from that as partial payment for my new Sigma. So it is going to be an all-prime kit. Now, I'm not going to carry all these lenses around with me all the time. I basically split them into two groups. In the bag that I will carry most days will be the 13mm and the 30mm. That gives me a super wide and a normal lens. And I do like lenses that are around the traditional 50mm focal length. So a 30 gives me an equivalent of 45mm. So that's very, very close. Gives me a little bit of wiggle room. I may have to do a little more cropping. No big deal. Now, let's get back to what this kit entails. With the 13 and the 30, I have an ultra wide, and I do have that, as I said already, that nice familiar focal length. I most of my time with 35 millimeter cameras, film cameras, uh, I had a 50 millimeter lens stuck on the front of it. I did have zoom lenses. I did have longer and shorter lenses, but that 50 was by far my favorite. So I'm back to that. The other kit, the 23 and the 50. Now remember, 50 on APS-C means I'm really looking at the angle of view of a 75 millimeter. So that kit gives me a street lens. The 23 millimeter is very good for that. That's a 35 millimeter equivalent. And it gives me a good portrait lens. So I can throw all of them in a bag. It's not that heavy. I can carry any combination of two of these with me every day in a small bag. Now, what sort of images do I expect to get from that? Well, you will see some examples right here. Some of the images are, rather pedestrian. The point is that this is still a learning curve for me. The 30 millimeter lens only came to me a few days ago. I haven't even gotten it out really for a proper test drive yet. But when I do, I will be certain to post some more images. Anyhow, folks, what I'm getting at, I guess you could say that the only takeaway from this particular video is that old cameras are good. Old cameras, you don't need to upgrade your camera. But at the same time, if you have a number of cameras, it doesn't make sense to just use the old one. The old ones are backups. If my OMD cameras die, then I have the pen EP3 to fall back on. It's the kind of thing that I could put a body cap on it, shove it in the bag as an emergency backup. It's not very big, serves the purpose. But to carry it every day, I think I'm kind of cheating myself. Because as good as the images from that camera are, I know that I can get slightly better technical images from my newer cameras. Now remember, it's the photographer that takes a picture, not the camera. However, given the choice between a camera that is quite capable and a camera that excels, I'll go with the one that excels. So folks, more gear, sorry about that. Are some sample images here. At least you have something to look at. And right now, this little package right here will be my fairly constant companion over the next little while, because it will, of course, serve the purposes that I need the camera to serve. Well, I apologize to anybody who went running out to buy old cameras because I talked about old cameras. I think the thing to remember here is that if you have an old camera and you enjoy it and you have fun with it, then by all means use it. If you have better cameras and you're going out and you want to get the best pictures you can, I think the best decision to make is to look at the lenses you're using. If you have a better lens for a lesser camera, I'll go with the better lens. If you are going out to shoot sports and you have a slow camera and a fast camera, it's a no-brainer. You take the faster camera. Horses for courses. Pick the camera and lens that best suits your purpose at any given time. And that is a lesson that I haven't quite learned yet, but I'm trying. And that's why I'm basically switching to this idea of a 2' everyday kit with 2 other primes in reserve for if I need them. And to be perfectly honest, I still have the little kit zoom, the 16-50 Sony zoom, because it does have optical image stabilization. I will use that outside for video if I decide to shoot any video at all with the Sony. I also have a very good 28 to 75 f2.8 Tamron zoom that I will take with me when I'm asked to take pictures of some event or other, because the flexibility of a zoom then becomes very important. Well, folks, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you want to see more of my videos, by all means, subscribe to this channel. And of course, if anybody else needs a little poke from this particular video or any of my other videos, by all means, share them. Bye for now.